Koto. As educators and practitioners, our absolute first and most critical step when supporting neurodivergent learners is a fundamental mindset shift. The collaborative proactive solutions model developed by Dr. Ross Green reminds us of a core truth that kids do well if they can. When an autistic student struggles in our learning spaces, it isn't an intentional choice to misbehave or be difficult. Instead, it's a direct signal that they are experiencing a lagging skill, particularly around communication. By shifting our lens away from modifying behaviours and towards collaborative problem solving with a universal design for learning framework, we stop trying to fix a child and start fixing their environments. And this is how we create a space where everyone can flourish. To effectively adapt our environments, we have to unpack what communication actually looks like. It is really helpful to categorize these into three distinct areas. Your receptive communication, which is how a student understands and processes incoming information. Expressive communication, how they share their own internal thoughts, feelings, and physical needs. And social communication, which is how they interact with others and navigate social behaviors. Universal design for learning encourages us to proactively design options for all three profiles, ensuring that barriers are removed before the learner even steps foot in the classroom. When deciding which evidence-based practices to implement, I ground my framework within the ministry's circle of evidence, filtering choices through the lens of pono, tika, and aroha. Under pono, we have to look inward at our own communication styles, acknowledging Milton's double empathy problem, the reality that communication breakdown is bidirectional. It's a two-way street, not a deficit solely to the person with autism. Through Tika, we ensure that our methodologies are culturally grounded, authentic, and delivered from strengths-based perspective. And finally, Aroha reminds us that the whānau are the true experts of their child. Their communication at home might look entirely different than it does at school. For example, if a Māori autistic learner connects deeply and expresses himself through nonverbal avenues like nature or waiata, our classroom ecosystem must actively embrace and honour that connection. To truly look inward, we have to question what we consider normal social interaction. This quote by John Elder Robinson captures it perfectly. I don't really understand why it's considered normal to stare into someone's eyeballs. For years, traditional behaviour plans forced eye contact, ignoring how intensely overwhelming or physically uncomfortable that can be for an autistic individual. True inclusion means validating different ways of being rather than just forcing neurotypical compliance. This graphic highlights the stark difference in how the sensory landscape is processed. A neurotypical brain is often able to easily filter out background noise, bright lights, or extreme movements and just neatly file them away. But for an individual on the autism spectrum, that sensory input can hit all at once, like a barrage of intense spotlights and tangled data. When communication breaks down in a high sensory environment, it isn't a behavior problem to punish, it's a structural environmental barrier we are responsible for solving. We must recognize that there is no single right way to communicate. Our ultimate goal is never to force standard spoken speech, but rather to ensure that the child has a reliable, stress-free tool to express what is on their mind. Expressive communication includes self-regulatory behaviors like stimming, echolalia, where the words are repeated over and over in a non-traditional way, but can actually hold deeply meaningful ways, leading or guiding a caregiver physically or utilizing their posture. When these tools fail, a child's communication may escalate to meltdowns or shutdowns. They're not tantrums, they are intense signals of sensory overload or frustration at not being understood. Because sensory processing and communication are completely intertwined, understanding each child's unique sensory profile is vital. Everyone, whether neurotypical or neurodivergent, processes sensory input differently. In my own practice, using the Sensing Me card set has been a game changer. It allows me to step into the child's perspective, mapping out exactly what brings them joy or comfort and what causes friction and distress. This is anything from messy play to clothing tags or loud sounds. It is their voice they are giving me. If we look closer at receptive communication, it's the ability to process and comprehend, integrate incoming visual, auditory, or situational messages. As Damien Milton's research shows, communication is mutually responsible. Misunderstandings usually occur because of mismatched communication styles, and it's not because the autistic individuals lack the social skills. It shouldn't be solely the responsibility of the autistic student to modify their style to please others. We, as educators, must actively employ non-verbal strategies to make sure our messages are accessible. What does this look like in day-to-day practice? Well, first we can implement an intentional wait time for processing. When we speak, an autistic learner may take significantly longer to decode the auditory information, translate it into meaning, and then formulate a response. Giving a robust 10-second pause before repeating an instruction or expecting a reply prevents cognitive overload and reduces anxiety dramatically. Secondly, we must rely heavily on visual schedules and choice boards. Verbal language is fleeting. It disappears the moment we say it. Visual tools like a first then framework, visual dailies timetables, or themed choice boards remain static. They give the learner a permanent reference point, providing predictability, reducing anxiety, and fostering independent navigation of the school day. Low-tech visual systems are incredibly powerful additions to any classroom toolkit. This includes communication boards featuring core vocab symbols, simple hand signs for transitions or breaks, and clear visual thumbs up, thumbs down, or stop indicators. These options don't require batteries or screens, and they provide immediate accessibility clearly. Now, expressive communication, how an individual projects their internal world outwardly. A common trap in education is assuming that a child's expressive language skills automatically match their receptive skills. But in reality, these profiles are often highly uneven. A student might fully grasp complex, high level concepts really well, but find themselves completely unable to verbally articulate why they're upset or what they need in the moment of stress. I love this quote by Rosemary Crossley. Not being able to speak is not the same as having nothing to say. In the classroom, uneven expressive skills manifest in many ways. A student might try to communicate through drawing, grabbing a hand, making loud noises, or hand flapping. Often, when a student lacks access to an immediate expressive tool, their self-protective actions are mislabeled by teachers or others around them as perceived defiance. When we understand that these actions are as expressive attempts, our response shifts from discipline to support. To support robust expressive capacity, we must weave low-tech options into our daily environments. This involves again the communication boards. I need choice rings or visual communication lanyards readily available, telling that they can point to say, I need a break, I need a hug, I need the bathroom. This then takes away the need for verbal processing when their brain is entering a high-stress state. For many learners, high-tech AAC is life-changing. Robust communication apps on tablets allow students to navigate complex pathways to express precise thoughts and feelings and questions. While I haven't used this specifically in my teaching career, I have seen it being used as a really impactful way to unlock a learner's true potential. When we look at the behaviour outputs critically, we see that they are directly linked to environmental gaps. If we fail to support receptive needs, for instance by delivering rapid, multi-step verbal instructions, we can trigger the auditory response of vulnerability. The student's internal stress level spikes, pushing them closer to that crisis point. Same way if a student encounters an expressive barrier, meaning they're expressing social anxiety, panic, internal shutdown, and they have no functional stress-free way to communicate that that's the state they're in, their receptive system closes off entirely. When the environment they are in offers no exit through receptive or expressive support, the body is forced to communicate for them. This brings us to the behavioural output itself, a meltdown. Throwing things, screaming, running away. This is the final desperate cry for help when an environment has become completely inaccessible. This is supported by K. Smith and all the rest. Our role in this exact moment is to not teach a lesson or demand compliance. It is what is required as an immediate shift to safety and co-regulation. Minimizing our own language, dropping our vocal volume, and providing a calm physical space. By reframing behavior as communication, we move from the punitive control to true ecological neurodiversity affirming care. To close it off, I want to share this beautiful poem by Emily Pearl Kingsley's Welcome to Holland. It reminds us that supporting neurodivergent tamariki and their whānau requires us to let go of conventional neurotypical expectations. Holland is not a broken version of Italy. It is simply a different place with its own unique pace, beauty, and landscapes. When we design our educational context to embrace that unique landscape, we stop mourning a missing journey and finally look around to appreciate the tulips.